Tortoise was nothing if not ambitious, and having risen from any consequence, there was one honor which he greatly desired to become a chief. One night he roused Naomi, his wife, just as she was falling asleep. "What is the matter, Tortoise? I am too sleepy to listen to the account of any of your wonderful exploits, and I must really ask you once again to tell me your adventures at a more suitable time." "My dear," replied Tortoise plaintively, "why do you misjudge me so rashly? I am not about to tell you of my adventures in peril and disaster. I merely wanted to say that unless I soon become a chief I shall pine away and die. The desire fills my mind the whole time, so that I can neither eat nor sleep. I am worn to a shadow." "You are a very thick shadow, husband," retorted Naomi crossly. "How can you possibly wear the robes of a chief on your slippery back? You will make a laughingstock of us with your silly ambitions." "All the same," persisted Tortoise, "I simply must become a chief, and I shall not rest until I have found a way of gaining what I desire." "Oh, how tiresome you are! Ask the king to make you a chief, to be sure," answered his wife, and fell asleep again. Tortoise thought over her words until at last he had an idea, then he fell asleep too. The next day he made his way to the king's palace. "Your Majesty," he said, jerking his head up and down in salute, "I have come to crave a favor. What is your request, O Tortoise?" asked the king. "Sire," replied Tortoise, "I greatly desire to become a chief." At this the king and all his court were convulsed with merriment. "That I have often heard that Tortoise is ambitious," said the king, "but I never thought he would claim a chiefdom." "Sire, next week a great event takes place on your birthday. If I were a chief I should feel at liberty to present your Majesty with the most unique gift you have ever received." The king could not help feeling curious when Tortoise made this cunning suggestion, and asked him what was the nature of the present. "Alas," replied Tortoise, "I shall never have the delight of giving the present to you, so why should I arouse your curiosity by describing it? I can only say that it is absolutely unique." The king could not bear to think of losing such a remarkable present, so he consented to make Tortoise a chief, and the ceremony took place at once. Tortoise went home very joyfully, and engaged 10 strong laborers, who went out each day and returned at night carrying a heavy burden. This went on for several days, until the morning of the king's birthday dawned. The king sat under a large white umbrella, and slaves fanned him with woven fans, while all the chiefs bowed before him and brought him presents of great value. One brought ornaments of gold, another offered him an elephant's tusk carved with praise of the king. Another brought a cloak made entirely of lions' manes and bordered with the skin of the rarest snakes. Only Chief Tortoise was absent. The king's warriors next performed a dance before him, and the agile acrobats turned somersaults to the pleasure of all beholders. Still Tortoise was absent. The king's frown grew heavier and heavier as evening came on and no Tortoise appeared. "If Chief Tortoise remains absent 1 hour longer," declared the king angrily, "it will cost him his head." Now the king was a rather ferocious monarch, and many heads had been sacrificed, both in peace and war, for his pleasure. The hour passed slowly. The celebrations fell flat, the struggles of the wrestlers, the witty songs of the dancers, and the lively playing of the drummers all failed to bring even one smile to the king's face. Then suddenly Chief Tortoise was seen in the far distance, approaching slowly and followed by 20 tall laborers. The drummers began to play, the dancers clapped their hands and sang, chorus, dancers/crowd, "Hail to Ajapa, Chief Tortoise! Hail! Oh, hail!" As Tortoise and his laborers approached, it was seen that Tortoise wore upon his back, which was at that time perfectly smooth and flat, a little mantle of gold cloth like a chief, and that his 20 laborers were bowed low under the weight of large nets which they carried over their shoulders, and which seemed to be full of round, hairy objects. "He has brought me a present of heads. Chief Tortoise, you are welcome. Come and sit beside me." The 20 laborers laid down their net some distance away, and Tortoise sat down beside the king, so that all the other chiefs, who would have liked to sit under the white umbrella where Tortoise was, were filled with envy. "Illustrious king," said Tortoise, "shaker of the earth, monarch of the forest, ruler of elephants and serpents, we are all assembled here to rejoice in your royal birthday, and I am glad to think that I have brought you a gift which is unique." "Chief Tortoise," replied the king, your present fills me with delight. I have never seen a collection of so many heads, and I am sure you must have gone through many perils and adventures to obtain them. I am not ungrateful, and I would like to hear how your present was obtained." Tortoise cleared his throat as if he were about to tell a long story, but at that moment a certain chief drew close to the king and cried, "Chief sire, the heads which Tortoise has brought are nothing but coconuts." And he flourished before the king's face a large and shaggy coconut. The king rushed to the spot where the laborers had put down their nets, and found that truly the nets were filled with a grand collection of coconuts. "So this is your unique present," he said grimly. "At least I will have one head, your own." "Your Majesty," pleaded Tortoise, trembling with fear, "I crave forgiveness. I am very, very poor, as your Majesty may perhaps remember, yet I truly desire to find a unique present, and I still claim that I have done so. I am quite convinced that your Majesty has never before received 500 coconuts, and if this is the case, then surely you will not desire my death, for I have done what I promised. I never said that I had brought a gift of heads. It is true, presumptuous chief, that I have never received 500 coconuts, replied the king, who could not refrain from smiling. It is equally true that I have no use for 500 coconuts, and I therefore command you to eat them all yourself. All the court rocked with merriment at this decree, but Tortoise was filled with consternation. In vain did he plead for mercy, promising to secure 10 or even 12 real heads by some means or other. The king's slaves began to open the coconuts one after another. Tortoise stood in front of the growing pile and began to eat. One coconut was quite sufficient for him, and when he had eaten 3, by this time the night was far advanced, he felt extremely uncomfortable. In the morning he was still eating, and the huge pile of coconuts was only decreased by 10. But alas for poor Tortoise! His back, which had always been so smooth and flat, was curved into the hump which his descendants still wear today. Seeing his sad condition, the king relented and declared himself satisfied. At this, Tortoise collapsed and was carried home by his laborers. "Now you see what it means to become a chief," said his wife, but for once Tortoise made no reply. In time he recovered from the ill effects of his feast, but to this day he has no liking for coconuts. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more contents like this.